we've talked about this quite a lot of time. But then there's still this precipitous decline of our national currency compared with other currencies. So the economy is bleeding red. And then you talk about fighting corruption. You still have a lot of people, termites, monkeys, snakes, eating up money. And then you still recall how some people were convicted people who got pardon, and then even I recall you having the same discussion saying that they came right at our faces and now they want to go back to public service. Now, with regards to all of that, I want to speak to your Nigerian conscience and not the one that is a partisan, that is into partisan politics. Have this administration really done well?
Well, you see, it's not a yes or no question, if you ask me. And I've always said this, even in the past, that there are certain things that I wish it has done better than it, especially when it comes to engaging with the Nigerian people. I had wished the president had engaged with Nigerian people, speak with Nigerians from the heart, explain certain situations. But we've had a situation where the president, we all know that he is a very aloof, really. And for that, it has given rise to a lot of speculations out there in the public space. Sometimes people are not even concerned about their delivery, what's infrastructure, but how you make them feel. And that is it's very important, how you make people feel. Do you empathize with them? Some say, traducers of the president say this all the time, that he's aloof, he's not engaging with Nigeria. How often did he talk to the press? But rather I prefer to talk through third parties. But if he had been more engaging, you're asking for my Nigerian consciousness. You understand?
Exactly.
I'm saying as a Nigerian now, I feel yes. But as someone who is partisan also, I would say yes, speaking to third parties is as good as speaking to the rest of Nigerians. But I had wished that the president would speak to me directly. I'm talking, you understand?
Looks like you're sitting on the fence now.
No, I'm not really sitting on the fence. You understand? I've given you what I would have expected as a Nigerian.
Now let's begin this conversation taking a quote from Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, who was the candidate of the Social Democratic Party and presumed winner of the June 12th presidential election, which has been described as the freest and fairest in Nigeria. He once said, "No one can give you power. It is yours. Take it from this day. Show to the world that anyone who takes the people of Nigeria for fools is deceiving himself and will have the people to answer to." Absolutely spot on. Now let's take our second quote, and this one is from Susie Kassem, an American writer, poet, philosopher, and multifaceted artist of Egyptian origin. She once said, "Choose a leader who will invest in building bridges, not walls, books, not weapons, morality, not corruption, intellectualism, and wisdom, not ignorance." I like. Now let's see how all of this could relate to what we'll be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, the All Progressive Congress APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his 80-page manifesto unveiled in Abuja, vowed to end the controversial petrol subsidy gulping trillions of naira annually and also tackle forex crisis hindering the economy if elected president next year, that's 2023. Tinubu's campaign policy document tagged Renewed Hope, Action Plan for a Better Nigeria was unveiled at the State House Banquet Hall alongside the inauguration of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, that's PCC, by President Muhammadu Buhari. In the manifesto, aside from phasing out fuel subsidy, Tinubu promised to accelerate full implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act and implement additional favorable policies to attract investment in deep water assets within 6 months, amongst other interesting things that he talked about. Now, on the show today, my guest is Deputy Director, Media and Publicity Directorate, APC PCC, that's Ali. He will be joining us later on after this time out to talk about the 80-page policy document, plus many more. That's after this time out. Do stay. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now it's time to go straight to our conversation for today. Our guest on the show today is Ali. He is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity Directorate, APC PCC, that's Presidential Campaign Committee. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me in your show. Hello, viewers. It's good to be here once again. Annabelle, it's been quite a while.
Quite a while.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
I was here, we're discussing about the press freedom and latest stuff. I think we're discussing about the media.
Exactly.
When I featured in this very captivating program of yours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
me. All right,
me.
now let's start by congratulating you on your appointment as the APC presidential spokesperson with regards to the media and publicity, and also
maybe you should congratulate me when APC gets the presidential mandate. That's when it has come here.
Really?
I think I see hard work ahead of us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So how's it going? How's the campaign? I know that at least it's already started. So how's it been so far?
Well, so far, I would say so good. So far, so good. Like they say, it may sound like a cliche. It's a cliche, actually. So far, so good. But I would say, yes, it's since I, like Nigerians would say, since I ported from the newsroom to partisanship, if you like, politics, I would say it has been quite interesting, quite engaging, and quite a revelation to me. And I would say, yes, so far, so good, to use the cliche again. Everything is going as expected, well, as planned, as hoped. For example, you can see last week on Friday, the Presidential Campaign Council was inaugurated. The agenda, the manifesto of the APC, and the action plan of the candidate, that is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was unveiled, and the president of the country, that is Muhammadu Buhari, pledged that he will be the one to lead the charge for APC to victory. So, and then everything is coming together. The initial slight glitches we've had between the governors, the party itself, has been rectified. So you would say the transition, almost we're transiting to something that is almost flawless. But then you're dealing with humanity, you're dealing with people, you expect glitches here and there. But by and large, everything is working according to plan.
That because you said they talked about glitches. What are your thoughts on the composition of the PCC with regards to, at least you have some people that were removed, like Professor Yemi Oshibajo, you have Ojo Zokalo and Rotimi Amechi, and then some people were added. You have your national chairman and then some of the members of the NEC. So is that a good mix?
Well, you say it's a good mix, really. But you see, people will always worry when they don't see names like the former vice president, the former minister of transport, who himself participated in the primaries that eventually saw Asiwaju Bola. Naturally, people will be curious as to why. But there are reasons which are being advanced. One of which is that even the president himself directed, look, because this is his last lap, that look, concentrate on governance for the ministers. And after being the president himself chairing the Presidential Campaign Council, you expect that perhaps his number two will concentrate on governance, not to be distracted from our governance. You understand why the president is involved in the campaign itself. You expect the number two man to be given some breathing space. What I mean, breathing space to work, to keep the administration going and smoothly. And yes, as for people make allusion to Rotimi Amechi not being part of the company, he's an advisor, and don't forget the commendable role Rotimi Amechi played twice, back to back. He was Director General of the Campaign Council of that saw Buhari win the election the first time in 2015, and then renew his mandate in 2019. So you will say that he's an advisor in the whole thing. So, but you see, in the past, yes, there have been this back and forth. Names have been taken out, names. But you see, it's an expanded PCC now. From the initial 422 members, now we have about 15,000. So you see, it's all inclusive. virtually every strata of the APC membership is reflected there, from governors to ministers. Everybody is there. Every single APC member, from those at the very top to those at the bottom of the organogram, what do you call it?
Organogram.
Organogram, yes. Is there. So it's very expanded and expansive. 15,000 is quite, if you ask me, it's quite handful.
Okay.
Yes.
And because you said, if I ask you, let me ask you a very personal question.
Yes.
Now, what exactly inclined that idea or that thought that made you decide to become the spokesperson for your party and become the image builder or the PR for your party? Why not SDP? Why not PDP? Why not, let's leave the main parties now. Let's go straight to the third force. Why not NNPP? Why not ADC and all of that? Because I recall that some time ago you actually said that they are just one and the same. So why not go for a fresh kid in the block?
Yes. Well, sometimes, like you said, why dock my ship in the APC dockyard? First, I must say this of the flag bearer of the party itself. That is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. More than anything else, it's his personal disposition. And I strongly believe that at a time like this, we need someone with his credentials, with his antecedents, and with his endless possibilities. He, like the President of the Republic said, he is a man with this can-do spirit. Sometimes, if you look at it, he's about the only Nigerian who has built bridges over the years and who has maintained those bridges and who is amenable to influences other than where he comes from, other than what makes him what he is today. That he's amenable to other ideas from across a very broad spectrum. That is one, more than anything else, is the personal disposition and attributes of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that made him very appealing. And at a time like this, you will need a leader who is appealing and who has a listening ear and who has a proven track record. We always make this reference to his days as governor of Lagos State. Lagos, very cosmopolitan city, like you said. And that's why his nickname, like you know, is City Boy. And truly, he has manifested this cosmopolitan disposition by his urbane, progressive, expanded worldview. And that's why when he was governor of Lagos State, he had people from all over in his cabinet, from across the country. Most of those who served under him, if you look at them, in their own right, they are giants. They are now giants in their own right. I can go on. Some have become governors, ministers, and for crying out aloud, we have a number 2 currently who was from his political, if you like, tutelage, who was a commissioner under his administration. So with that, and with the fact that, like you said, why not pitch my, tent in places, if I wanted ethnic solidarity, for example, or ethnic solidarity or tribal solidarity, I would easily have gone to NNPP. The presidential flag bearer there is from my state. But I don't believe that he has what it takes to rule or to reverse or to improve on the ailing fortunes of a very complex country like Nigeria. That is one reason, and to me, that is enough. Then secondly, you look at the man who, politics is about numbers, and then who is more likely to coast home to victory. You don't, at a time like this, people say, and I want to quote this, that, look, you can make a moral mistake and recover. But if you make a political mistake, rarely you recover from that. So, leaving the newsroom, going into that, and then, of course, a lot of people, especially people who knows all my views about, like you rightly pointed out, that really, if you look at all these parties, what's the difference? 6.5 of those. But then you say that is the difference is those at the very top. What is their disposition? When people like me, you'll be surprised that we supported someone. I supported Buhari. All his political journeys. From the time I had sympathy for him, you understand, because I thought, and rightly so, given his credentials, that he is a reformer, was a military head of state, he was a reformer. He reformed a decadent system. And fast forward, at the time we supported him, and he became president in 2015 and then 2019. His credentials spoke for him. You understand? If you know what he did way back in 1994, he ran on that record. And then, along with other Democrats, he came together, formed the APC. Like you know, the APC is a legacy. I mean, it's an amalgam of so many parties, about 5 of them. ABGA, CPC, Action Congress of Nigeria, led by Asuwaju, and then a splinter group of the PDP called the NPDP, led by the former Senate President Bukola Saraki. No, by the former Vice President and currently the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar. They came together to dislodge, at the time, a government, I mean the PDP that was underperforming. So, yes, that's one of the reasons. But yeah, if you look at this, I still maintain that if you look at it closely, you will see that ideologically the APC is slightly different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, slightly different because of, look at the manifesto of the APC. It's steeped in progressive ideals, one of which is that, look at the social intervention program, for example.
We're going to talk about the manifesto later on the show. But now let me ask you, with regards to what you just stated, I'm going to ask you 2 questions and I'd like you to bundle them in one breath. Now, you talked about ethnicity, tribalism. That was not the reason why you went to the APC, to NNPP rather. So now, if you are talking about tribalism and ethnicity, what about the APC that have been under the radar with regards to religion or same faith ticket? So isn't that leaving one thing and then going for the other? That's one on the side. And then secondly, you talked about President Muhammadu Buhari's achievements from 2015, and in fact, even before now. So would you actually say that as this administration is winding down, would you actually say that they have delivered on the promises that they made to Nigerians? Now,
let's talk on this lingering issue which has refused to go away. And that is about the Muslim ticket. I think you're making reference to that. And whether the Nigerian people are being shortchanged, because what's the difference now between a party that disrespected zoning and a party that also some people say is not reflective of the varied nature of the Nigerian people when it comes to issues of faith? This is, I think, basically what the question you're saying. Now, first, let's look at it. There is this understanding, and written, not in the Constitution, that power will rotate between North and South. Now, this is the argument here, and which I subscribe totally, because I've always said, yes, personally, I think I have a slightly different view. But you see, politicians, I always say, they don't look at faith, they look at numbers, they want to win. And time and again, number one and number two, when they get the mandate in Abuja, they're not going to operate from the places of worship like the masjid, like the mosques. They're not going to work in the mosques. They're not representing as such. They're representing fixed constituencies. And the Constitution is very clear that people can, the ticket, the presidential ticket has to be balanced. If the number 2 comes from zone A, number 1 comes from zone A, number 2 will come from a certain zone. So it doesn't also reflect, talk about religion? You see, and that's a very knotty issue now here, because you see, people will always, issues of faith, they are very emotive issues, very emotive. And sometimes, but emotion sometimes is not reflective of reality. Like I said, politicians look at numbers, they don't look at faith anywhere else. And segmentation will always occur. If it's not faith, it will be ethnic. If it's not ethnic, it will be intra-ethnic. It will be intra-faith. There are places now, if you go to certain parts of the country, if you don't belong to a certain same religion, Annabelle, same religion, but if you don't belong to a certain sect, if you're not this, for example, if you're not this sect, or if you're not, you don't belong to this denomination, if you're not Catholic, if you're not Anglican, if you're not Pentecostal, you understand? It's all the segmentation we're talking about. If you go to certain part of the country, again, same ethnic religion, same ethnicity, but then if you don't belong to a certain, if you like a caste system now. If you are Yoruba, you're not Egba, you are not Ijebu, you are not Ibadan. I'm just giving instances now. So you will say, and rightly so, that segmentation will always occur, but you want to win. And that's the reason why in the PDP, for example, the PDP took a hard look and decided, look, we're not going to respect what is agreed in their constitution, that is zoning. We're not going to abide by that because we want to win. When we win, then we can talk of zoning, we can talk of giving commensurate, if you like, distribution of political offices, because, but then let's win first. And some element in the PDP are still kicking that, look, that is not the way it should be. But you see, coming back to this very vexatious issue, which has refused to be swept under the carpet, rightly so. But even it's only the media sometimes. Unfortunately, I'm a member of the media. I can't run away from that, dwelling on this. Because, look, the APC has gone past that. But there are elements, again, those who are pushing
But Nigerians have not.
Well, which Nigerians? Well, with due respect, the voters, because only this morning or yesterday, there are a group of people under the same ages. That's why I say the media is keeping this in the front, well, which is okay. I have no quarrel with that, because one of the roles of the media is to hold government and politicians accountable. I have no quarrel with that. But the thing is, like I said, both of them, that is number one and number two, on the APC ticket, have said, look, like number two said, look, he's there to represent not a fate, that there is someone else who can represent that. They are there to win, and they're looking at numbers. But like you said, a lot of people, some Nigerians have moved past that. A lot of Nigerians. For example, the governor of Ondo State, Akeredolu, he said, look, he opposed the Muslim ticket, but he said, look, they look at what's on the ground, and it's about winning. And they think this is the thing that will get them the votes that would take them home and dry. All right. So yes, this is my position. Okay,
so you actually didn't touch on the President Muhammadu Buhari or as this administration is winding down very quickly.
Well, you see, people, they ask this question, that some feel that the current regime has not performed optimally. Well, they are entitled to their opinion. But given the resources available at the disposal of this administration, I would say that this administration has done far better than the PDP administration it inherited. And part of the problem, if you look at it, is that if you look at in closer terms, the amount of infrastructure and the level of infrastructural delivery is unbelievable. Only a couple of days ago, the Minister of Works revealed that over 8,000 kilometers of roads nationwide were delivered under the Buhari administration. And look at the indices. Compared to the time the government took over in 2015 and now, you will find out, you'll be shocked. It's just that the government, like the president himself rightly pointed out, has not advertised in a way. It's remarkable reforms. If you look at it, let's look at this thing dispassionately now. If you look at railway in the process of reviving and revitalizing the economy, look at railways, for example.
Railways, for example, like the Abuja-Kaduna Railway.
Abuja-Kaduna Railway, the Lagos-Ibadan, and some of the ongoing projects, including the one that will link Nigeria to Maradi and a section of Niger Republic, all the way from Kano, and then the Lagos-Kano access of the rail line that also is being revitalized, that would eventually, the rails will be completely revitalized. It's work in progress, but then look at the amount of challenges. Some of the things, look at the retooling of the Nigerian armed forces. Look at how they've been retooled, the purchase of new equipment to fight insurgency. And don't forget, Nigeria is, it's just that we don't want to admit it, Nigeria is at war. And any kind of war consumes a lot of resources. We're fighting banditry in the North Central. We're fighting insurgency in the Southeast. We're fighting separatist element in the Southeast.
But then this government came up with that mantra of change. They will fight insecurity. But then you talked about railways, how much they've built on infrastructure. The same infrastructure that you built on, the same, that's where you have insecurity, bringing them down, like the Abuja-Kaduna Railway that we just talked about. So it's like you giving one thing with one hand and then the other hand, it's being collected. Yeah, farmers cannot go back to their farms.
You see, let me tell you something, how crime or banditry or insurgency work is, in a way, is networked. What I mean network, when insurgents elements were dispersed, for example, in the northeast, they congregated, dispersed nationwide. Some melted into the population, some moved to other regions of the country, congregated, for example, in the northwest. In the northwest, some elements, some forces, some factors, some variables come together to form a bandit belt. And if you like, an unholy alliance between criminal elements and separatist elements as insurgents, those who are seeking to establish a territory purely based on faith, like we had in the past under PDP, if you like, when we had a section of the country annexed by insurgent elements, in fact declaring and proclaiming an Islamic state, if you remember very well. Now, what we have now in the north central or in the northwest is fallout of the dislodgement of these insurgent elements who moved to the northwest, connive, form an alliance with bandit elements. Now, what does it tell you? That, look, the counterinsurgency or checking banditry is work in progress. It's a long process which may take a while. And you see, given the amount of challenge the government inherited, the amount of lean resources, like I always say, lean resources, then you will say, yes, you terms of the government. Unless you are very conversant with the delicate nature of fighting such crime, if you like, you may not jump to the conclusion that the government has not made any inroads if you're not fully involved. And I will say that, yes, given some of the information available may not easily come to the public for knowledge because of the sensitivity of the information. And you find that people, all manner of people have been involved now in it. It has become one large, if you like, cartel now. You find so many people involved in it.
Okay.
Yeah, you understand. So, yes, but you see, like you said, the Buhari government came promising 3 major things. And then 7 years later, what is the verdict? You understand? But 4 years ago, the verdict was that, look, continue with what you're doing. He's renewed his mandate. 3 years ago, Nigerians said they were satisfied with the first 4 years. Continue with for another term of 4 years. And you will see that the level now, under Buhari's watch, not a single inch of this nation's territory is under the control of insurgent elements. And I think that's a commendable thing. Okay,
before we go on this the quick break, now let me ask you, talk about the 3 mantras that they came up with. Change, talking about fighting corruption, stabilizing the country, and then fighting insecurity. Now, in that regard, in all of this, now we've talked about this quite a lot of time, but then there's still this precipitous decline of our national currency compared with other currencies. So the economy is bleeding red. And then you talk about fighting corruption. You still have a lot of people, termites, monkeys, snakes, eating up money. And you still recall how some people were convicted people who got pardon, and then even I recall you having the same discussion saying that it came right at our faces and now they want to go back to public service. Now, in regards to all of that, I want to speak to your Nigerian conscience and not the one that is a partisan, that is into partisan politics. Have this administration really done well?
Well, you see, it's not a yes or no question, if you ask me. And I've always said this, even in the past, that there are certain things that I wish it has done better than it, especially when it comes to engaging with the Nigerian people. I had wished the president had engaged with Nigerian people, speak with Nigerians from the heart, explain certain situations. But we've had a situation where the president, we all know that he is a very aloof, really. And for that, it has given rise to a lot of speculations out there in the public space. Sometimes people are not even concerned about your delivery, what's infrastructure, but how you make them feel. And that is it's very important, how you make people feel. Do you empathize with them? Some say, traducers of the president say this all the time, that he's aloof, he's not engaging with Nigeria. How often did he talk to the press? But rather, I prefer to talk through third parties. But if he had been more engaging, You're asking for my Nigerian consciousness. You understand?
Exactly.
I'm saying as a Nigerian now, I feel yes. But as someone who is partisan also, I would say yes, speaking to second, third parties is as good as speaking to the rest of Nigerians. But I had wished that the president would speak to me directly. I'm talking, you
Looks
understand?
like you're on the fence, you're sitting on the fence now.
No, I'm not really sitting on the fence. You understand? I've given you what I would have expected as a Nigerian. But given the fact that also as a partisan now, you understand? And I know the amount of work sometimes involved. And I know sometimes when the situation that there could be misinterpreted. You see, in every language, political communication is very central. You don't room for any ambiguity. But in the Nigerian situation, you say one thing, you'll be given 1, 2, 3, 4 different interpretations. You understand? And sometimes it's better to just be quiet. Speak through third parties. If you are in the position of rulership, given how deeply political the Nigerian environment is, especially with the dawn of, the new media, you see instances where things are taken out of context. So sometimes when you're quiet, you mute. Nobody will interpret your muteness for anything.
But then, like Nigerians will always say that some people are activists before they get into government. But then when they get into government, what exactly is that thing that is inside government that makes the activism just dwindle away? And then they see things like, it's all good.
Yeah, because you'll be shocked, the shocking details of how perhaps government works, how elements in government think, how they work, how interests clash all the time, and how even this what I'm saying now, to some other people that's a very radical view, because you're saying something that perhaps are best left unsaid than being out in the open because of the shocking details. You see activists when they go there. Government is vast, especially for a country like Nigeria. Nigeria, we're talking of, for example, now if you look at the number of registered voters in Nigeria, over 90 million people. The rest of West Africa, collectively, the rest of West Africa, we have 16 nation states in West Africa. The remaining 15 states, nation states in Africa, their total registered number of voters is 76 million. So when Nigeria goes to the poll, the whole of West Africa is going to the polls. And if Nigeria transition process, you're talking of this multitude of interest. And if you are leading Nigeria, you have to look at this multitude of interest, aggregate them, make the right communication, make people sufficiently comfortable. You understand? Sometimes in the cozy confines of newsroom and studios, you can afford to take certain liberties. If you are in government or you come with the shocking reality of politics, that's when you learn to be a little bit more restrained and a little bit more sympathetic. Now, as a reporter now, this had made me more rounded and more appreciative of the difficulty and the tax of getting along with people ordinarily you wouldn't have expected to go along with if you are insulated from certain realities as in the newsroom and the studio.
Politics.
Politics. Politics exposes so much to you that you wonder how some people carry on. But of course, if you want to render service, even now as it is now, you clash with a lot of people because they have a totally different worldview. All right. Shaped by your years in the newsroom and as a journalist.
Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we will continue this conversation with Ali. Stay with us. We will be right back. You're still optimistic about that, especially when you have the Kwankwansias.
Yes, Kwankwansia is just like the Obi movement in a way, but unlike Obi, Kwankwaso is a super regional tiger. What I mean, beyond Kano, and possibly maybe neighboring Jigawa State, because Jigawa after was created from the borders of Kano. Yes, but we're talking of the presidential race here. We're talking of the presidential race between Kwankwaso and Asodi. And don't forget the people of Kano, they are politically sophisticated to know the real deal and I wanna be. I'll give you an example. In 1993, the people of Kano rejected their own son, Bashir Tufa, and voted for Abiola. Because Abiola, related to them, he identified with them in their moments of travails. Now, the same Asiwaju is playing Abiola again. Went to sympathize with the big and small merchants of Kano to commensurate with them over the flood disaster. Where is the other presidential candidate? Has he done that? We've not seen him done that. As far as I know, I've not seen him done that.
All right. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show today is Ali. He is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity Directorate, APC PCC. All right, before we went on that break, we actually talked about quite a lot of things. Now, someone actually stated that a bad product is very difficult to sell. And I'm going to ask you, your presidential candidate, is he a marketable or a sellable product for Nigerians?
Well, I think Nigerians have made that very clear. Of the class 99 governors, he's about the only one now who is actually managed to remain in the national political conversation. He's about the only one who, through deft, very skillful negotiation, moved the whole of the Southwest from opposition politics to mainstream politics. He's about the only governor who survived the 2003 political tsunami that swept most of the AD governors. That's Alliance for Democracy. A lot of people may know that Asiwaju Bola Tinubu came into office in 1999 under the platform of the Alliance for Democracy, and indeed the whole of the 6 Northwest and Southwest governors. And by 2003, all of them except one, that is him, survived the political tsunami unleashed by Obasanjo, who wanted to have a constituency, a foothold. If you recall, Obasanjo in 1999 became president by default. His constituency in the Southwest did not vote for him, but he cruised to victory. And the opposition was domiciled, if you like, to the PDP in the Southwest, the AD. The AD controlled the 6 Southwestern states. By 2003, that 6 had depleted to only 1, Lagos. But through a very lingering, difficult legal process, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his band of very brilliant Nigerians, with the likes of Professor Yemi Osibanjo as Commissioner of Justice under him, went to court and reclaimed most of the stolen mandate in the Southwest, which saw till this moment, if you look at the election in the Southwest, in some states like Ikiti, like Oshun, it's off-season because Asiwaju went to court, challenged the victory of PDP at the time, proved beyond reasonable doubt that some of these elections were rigged. So why do I think he's a good product? Because, like I say, he's a bridge builder. He has built bridges over the years. He has he has managed to build these bridges and made the right political choices, built others across the region. And today, perhaps, like the governor of Jigawa State, Badaru stated not too long ago that this is payback time. It's the time you pay back the investment, political goodwill Asiwaju has made over the years, building bridges across the nation, which saw, for example, him supporting in 2007 when Atiku Abubakar lost out in the PDP. He moved to the ACN, and Asiwaju Bola Tinubu being the leader of the ACN at the time, after moving from AD, from the Action Congress, and eventually metamorphosed to Action Congress of Nigeria, provided that platform for Atiku Abubakar to run against Erdogan, who later on became the president. In 2011, the same Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to just show his marketability, supported Nuhu Ribadu to run for president under the platform of the ACN. And by 2015, he again supported Muhammadu Buhari, who today is president. And don't forget, Buhari had run unsuccessfully 3 consecutive times. But I've always said Buhari was a bankable project. Buhari was about the only president from the northern part of the country, or as a presidential candidate, who consecutively was posting 9, 10, 11 million votes. But all couldn't take him home until Asuwaju came into. And that's why Asuwaju Tinubu now is actually the candidate, and that's why his marketability.
So how's it been for you marketing him? Because now why I asked that question is because the recent CAD Invest summit, where he stated that El-Rufai has the ability to turn a rotten situation to a bad one, and then you just know that there are the rotten, the bad, the worse, and then on the flip side you have the good and the better. So at what point?
No, you see, I think that has been explained, but you expect that the media will dwell on that, and essentially you're dwelling on it. And that thing has been answered previously, that it was actually a slip of tongue. All the time, even now, in the course of the interview, I'm sure there are places I've made occasional slips, which, of course, I will go back immediately. Because if you are speaking, especially extempo, chances are that even if you are reading from a script, you make occasional slips.
So what are the plans of the media and publicity to actually put that in check? Because definitely he will be making a lot of speeches. So to at least to ameliorate that slip that might turn.
Well, let me tell you, after the CAD Invest, he went back to Kaduna 2 days later to address the Arewa Joint Committee. And there, he said, look, he admitted, and you must give it to him, because I remember when we sat down before he went to Kaduna, there are some things we said, look, Jagaba, you should stick to the script. Don't go outside the script. Even though
when he stated that he doesn't want to use the script, most times.
Yeah, well, we said no, skip. And then he went there before the Arewa Joint Committee. He said, look, I've been warned to stay off script, to stay on the script. You see, when I say you can make occasional slips, I just made one now. I say I've been warned to stay on the script, not to go unscripted. And it shows the leader who can be influenced. Some other places, because we've argued, this is we started, then we argued. And then he will come with even a better expression than some of us, you understand? Because he's been in the political trenches for years. So he understands the nuances and even the issues that relate to the economy, international politics, and so many other things that perhaps for some of us who are coming straight from the newsroom, you find out that the man is quite an enigma, and that the man literally is a walking encyclopedia. You understand? He has the vast knowledge of the economy, of security, of international politics. Let me tell you one thing he said during the unveiling of the manifesto and his action plan as a presidential candidate. He said, look, if borrowing was a crime, the whole of America would be in jail. And that was quite significant, because America is right now the biggest detonator in the country, in the world. I mean, not country. Is there another slip I'm talking about? Yes. So that makes him really, like you said, well, is the media, well, I just told you one now. Stay on script. Don't go out script. Because, but how often, you understand, the situation that if somebody is committed to misunderstanding you, Annabelle, they know pretty well what you mean. They know pretty well what you mean.
Maybe we don't know.
No,
that's why we're asking.
No, but I think more often than not, sometimes it's their duty as a media person now, as a journalist, to interrogate politicians. And if possible, if there is any shred, any whatsoever, no matter how tiny, it's their duty to expose either doublespeak or hypocrisy.
All right, so very quickly, what are your party's chances in 2023, looking back at 2015 when they contended with Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and then in 2019 when you had the fierce tea fight between your party and then Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and now 2023, it's a different thing all entirely. You have this revolution that you have with regards to the obedience. So I actually saw a newspaper saying that now they have acknowledged the fact that obedience movement is a real thing to deal with. So what are your party's chances? That's one on the side. And then secondly, looking at what went on during your last outing in Kano State, and then you were accused of not having the right quality kind of crowd. So what are your thoughts on all of that? How do you intend to manage all of that?
Well, certainly the Obi movement is something that has excited quite a number of Nigerians, especially young people, new voters, especially those who come of voting age between now and next year. So there are a lot of excitement. And then this excitement, you will see that, especially in cyberspace, that excitement had taken to the level of, if you like, well, fanatism, because you dare not go against obedience, and then you think you go scot-free if you go out there in the cyberspace. But you see, like I always say, yes, excitement in cyberspace, in social media, which is okay. But you see, at crunch time, would that, how much of that would translate into electoral assets? To this moment, there are places that the Labour Party has no candidate. It doesn't have the structure. The same excitement was the same excitement supporters way back in 2003, 2007, 2011, when Buhari ran unsuccessfully for 3 consecutive times until 2015 with the merger, and then with a section of the skeptical elect persuaded by the likes of Ahmed Bola Tinubu with that alliance that saw Buhari coming into power in 2015. So the obedience, yes, is a good start. I hope they can maintain it in 2023, 2027, and possibly 2031. That's the much I can say about the excitement. But whether it's going to be a 3-horse race, I don't see that happening. Because like I gave you this allusion with the Buhari for 3 consecutive terms. He had even people who are more obedient. Buharidins, which I was one at the time, were far more, if you like, fanatic about Buhari, because Buhari was military head of state, and we saw him, and given his austerity disposition, he was not a man of waste, a man of very few words, but his action at the time, he was military head of state, he restored Nigeria international glory, made sure Nigerians were a very disciplined bunch, as opposed to what we have now, very unruly bunch. You understand? Most Nigerians, I'm not saying all Nigerians are the sort that would find a way to circumvent laid down rules and regulations. Some Nigerians will always be on the watch out for a quick buck, whether legitimate or illegitimate. Under Buhari's watch in 1984 to 1985, as a military head of state, he brought, some people say he would rule iron-fisted rule, but then it had results, and that's what made him appealing, and a man of unquestionable integrity. His integrity till this moment remained unassailable. But you see, coming to this issue of whether we don't see the rise of obedience as a threat to the APC and to Asiwaju. I think it's more of a problem with the PDP, because PDP had traditionally enjoyed the support of the Southeast. Where is that support now? And given the internal crisis right now, only this morning, or when was it, that they said the peace process between, it was reported, between Wike and Atiku has finally gone under. That now they have crossed the Rubicon, that cannot be redeemed. They've gone their separate ways, ultimately. And it's going to affect the chances of the PDP in the South-South. And indeed, the South is already, like some people make this joke, that Atiku has the votes of the South is in the back. But unfortunately, Peter Obi holds that back. I don't know whether you get the joke there.
I understand. Okay, so now for your party, do you actually have the hold, especially in the north, Kano State?
Like talking about Kano, that's very interesting. You know, people choose to promote what they would suit them, which it is politics after all. And don't forget, Kano is my home state. Kano is my home state. So I can tell, I mean, I have a certain degree of understanding of what goes, the political leanings there. When Asiwaju went to Kano recently, he did not go primarily for politics. He went to sympathize with the victims of flood disaster, especially Kano is a city of commerce. A lot of small businesses went under heavy torrential rainfall. He went to sympathize with them. And then secondly, to inaugurate, to declare open his presidential campaign office. And it was, as far as I know, something that was more or less on the spur of the moment. Something that, that was not, the way people... But even as I look at the crowd that welcome him. Look at the crowd. It's just that people are not choosing to look at that. They're looking to downplay that, look, with Kano and Lagos, solidly behind Asiwaju, because after Lagos, the difference, the number of registered voters between these two is just a few thousands more. Lagos has more than Kano. So if you could get Lagos and get Kano, like the way Kano voted for Buhari in 2019, and Kano has consistently voted for Buhari, even when a former governor of the state actually ran to be president, Buhari dusted him. Ibrahim Shekaro, incidentally, he was my boss at the point. He ran in 2011. The votes Buhari got in Kano were much more than the votes Shekaro as presidential candidate of the AMPP got nationwide. And
yes, you're still optimistic about that, especially when you have the Kwankwansias.
Yes, Kwankwansia is just like the Obi movement in a way, but unlike Obi, Kwankwaso is maybe is a super regional tiger. What I mean, beyond Kano, and possibly maybe neighboring Jigawa State, because Jigawa after was created from the borders of Kano. Yes, but we're talking of the presidential race here. We're talking of the presidential race between Kwankwaso and Asiwaju. And don't forget, the people of Kano, they are politically sophisticated to know the real deal and I want to be. I'll give you an example. In 1993, the people of Kano rejected their own son, Bashir Tufa, and voted for Abiola. Because Abiola, related to them, he identified with them in their moments of travails. Now, the same Asiwaju is playing Abiola again. Went to sympathize with the big and small merchants of Kano to commensurate with them over the flood disaster. Where is the other presidential candidate? Has he done that? We've not seen him done that. As far as I know, I've not seen him done that.
All right. Because you mentioned MKO Abiola, now let's talk about your party's 80-page policy document. And then now, at least having a manifesto actually afford Nigerians the opportunity to come back, vet, and then hold politicians accountable for their words, what they stated and their promises. Now, in that regard, you have the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party saying that your party plagiarized his manifesto and his mantra. He has hope again, and then you have renewed hope. So that's one on the side. And then secondly, you have Dele Momodu saying that it was just like copy and paste that your party did with regards to their the manifesto, that you copy and you republished MKO Abiola's manifesto. How do you react to that?
Well, I think both gentlemen have been given responses to that. Kiyamo responded to Dele Momodu, and so I won't want to bother with that. Now, but you see, I think a question of semantics. Hope, again, renewed hope, you understand, it's a question of semantics. There is no way that could amount to plagiarism, you understand. And in any case, like we said from the onset, if you look at the manifesto of the APC, has been consistent from the 2014. What we have now is the action plan of the candidate, and the action plan of the candidate is rooted in the manifesto of the APC. It's just a matter of style, you understand. Some will choose to see 6 as half a dozen, and some will see as 6 to see half a dozen as 6. This is the thing, the difference between APC manifesto and the action plan of the presidential candidate. This is basically, this is generic term. If after Asiwaju, hopefully 2023, 2027 to 2031, and then hopefully someone will come, the same APC manifesto, which is rooted in progressive politics, of lifting the people, of intervening with them, of empathizing with them, of identifying with their aspirations and their travels, would also be the same thing that would form the kernel of the trust, of whoever want to fly the flag of the party. So, question of plagiarism, like the copy and paste, you look at it, really, I think Dele Momodu, like Festus Kiyamo said, is just trying to get attention.
Okay. All right, our time is fast spent, but before we let you go, let's talk about your manifesto. According to your presidential candidate, he promised that parents will no longer finance their children's university education, as federal government will fund them through TED fund loans. And then we'll talk about these promises. I recall that he also gave same promise, I think it was in Osun State, where he talked about funding WASC for senior secondary school children. And now is okay, there's another one that he stated. He's also assuring that the police will be repositioned to deliver on its primary duties of community policing and maintaining law and order through crime fighting and prevention. Now, the same state policing or community policing that was watered down by his predecessor, President Muhammadu Buhari. So I need you to respond to these two things, because Nigerians are wondering, how do you intend to fund education? And then in the the flip side, with regards to state policing, if it is, we're not just paying lip service.
Well, let's begin with education, because it's crucial. When he went to Arewa, he said this, and then it's there also in this action plan about the liberating power of education, about the emancipating power of education. If you give a society education, you are emancipating it, and you are making it a lot easier for it to progress. Now, you see, unless you think out of the box, and Asuwaju is a thinker out of the box all the time. Before he gets to a bridge, he's known how to cross it. He's developed multiple ways to cross the bridge. He doesn't cross the bridge when he gets there. He crosses the bridge long before he got there. He will think of a multiple of ways. I know this because my interaction with the man one-on-one has given me hope that, yeah, we find someone who would make, literally turn bread and stone into bread. Now, how is he going to do that? When he talked about education, that would be, look at TED-Fund, for example. It's an intervention agency. A lot of resources are at the disposal of TED-Fund. I think a certain percentage of our oil revenue and a certain percentage of, I'm trying to recall, goes to TED-Fund, which in turn funds
companies.
Companies, yes. Now, which in turn, funds education. Now, when he said, looking other climes, students are given certain loans to pay for their tuition in the US, and that's why you understand education, because given our reality now, and we all know this, why is ASU in the trenches all the time fighting, you understand, for better funding, because given the exponential growth of student intake into universities, and given the limited number of available spaces, and again, given the fact that education anywhere is capital intensive, Asuwaju has thought out of the box how to do that by provision of students' loan, for example. You understand? Elsewhere is done that, and then over time you will learn to do that, to pay back once you get the education, and then education that is liberating, that will make you self-employed. There are a lot of people. Look, if you look at over the years, sometimes people are taught to be dependent on government. But over time now, there are people who have acquired the degree, given them certain, equip them with certain skills, that now they are actually creators of jobs. This is what Asuwaju is talking about. Okay. Look, the education you will receive, you make you think out of the box, and then it will make you employer of labor, not an employee. You understand? So okay. That's aside.
So please touch on the other one, state policing, the same one that was watered down.
He's also very clear about that. Very clear. What he said he's going to, make it so much that community policing, which already is in practice now. As for state police, he's mentioned that, he said it over and over again, it's a constitutional matter. And unless he has an abiding faith in the Constitution, that it's a constitutional matter, whatever is within the ambit of the Constitution, the law, he will respect that. But basically, community policing, what is community policing? Getting people, locals, it may be federal police, but locals who have domicile. And if you look at it, most rank and file are natives of that particular community.
All right.
Yes.
We actually wish we had more time to deliberate on this, but thank you so much for your time with us.
Well, it's been a wonderful time. Thank you for having me in your show, and I think it's more like the hot seat, I would say.
Interesting. Yes. I will wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, viewers, that's where we end today's show. We have been chatting with Ali. Ali, he is the Deputy Director, Media and Publicity Directorate at APC PCC. So it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I'll see you again next time. Keep watching The Conversation. Until I come your way again. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.